Let's see if it works. Third time of trying. In this video, we're going to be looking at this, my Olympus E-M1 Mark II, and seeing how I got on holiday, giving it a proper review, a proper hard workout, and see how I got on with it. Join me. Roll credits again. Well, hi YouTube, Brian James at Micro Four Thirds guy with you once again. This is the third time I've tried doing this video. I've tried various things. I did one in Cyprus just before I came away, wasn't happy with it at all. I've done one last night to try and do it back over here in the UK, wasn't happy with it at all. So hopefully it's third time lucky on it. So why have I had so much problem? Well, very, very simple, because I wasn't quite sure what I should be telling you. I started out, the one in Cyprus was wonderful. I gave you all the specs of the E-M1 Mark II. I gave you all the details of it. I told you what size the panel on the back was. I told you how many megapixels it was. I told you all the features. But you've got those on loads of other videos. So what could I actually bring to a video which was going to be news to you, which is going to be useful to you? Well, keep watching. Hopefully I'll have something in that lineup for you by the time I've finished explaining exactly what happened with this camera when I took it away for a fortnight on holiday and put it through its paces. Well, the camera itself is a bit of an awkward one. It's a 2016 released camera, which means that it's now 6 years old. Now, it's been superseded twice, the E-M1 Mark III and also the new OM1, which have, you know, they're given significant upgrades on that. And of course we had the E-M1X come into it, which I haven't really included in because it is a bigger format. It's the format which has the built-in battery grip. And I thought that wasn't really a direct comparison to this. But I took this camera after a lot of your comments on holiday in Cyprus for a fortnight. And as a holiday camera, as a normal photographer's camera, not to do professional shots, not to do anything really fancy with it, but to give me a lot of pleasure and to fulfill my obligations to myself, not to anybody else, as to what I wanted from photographs. So has it worked out that way? Well, keep watching and hopefully I'll tell you. But while you're watching, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below if you haven't done so already. Thank you to the almost 5,500 people who have. Really appreciate it. And hit the notification bell beside it. And while you're down there, don't forget to give a thumbs up because that really does help. Anyway, on with the video. I took this across there, and as I say, it's a great little camera. Yes, but there are some specs I'll cover. 20.4 megapixel, I think it is, which for a long time has been the biggest size sensor on Micro Four Thirds of the normal sort of cameras that we have. But before you get into some of the more esoteric video cameras from some of the lesser known manufacturers or the more specialist manufacturers. So this has been it. It's only really been surpassed now with the OM1, which has got a stacked 20 megapixel sensor, and also with the 25 or so megapixel sensor, the GH6. Now, I'm not a great pixel peeper, but to me this has been perfectly adequate for what I needed. And remember, in the past I've used my OM1 primarily as the camera that my use for holidays. I've also been using the GX8 for some of the UK holidays, but I haven't had a holiday since 2020, very beginning of 2020, before all the lockdowns and things started. And I didn't have this camera then. Now, I bought this camera about a year ago, and it's a superb piece of kit. It is one of the best cameras I have. I have a G9 Lumix, and this is a comparable camera to that. And I've done a few comparison videos. I think you might find a link around to it. I'll try and remember to put one up above. But I thought that the G9 as a new camera was giving me great value for money. Then of course the Mark III came out and gave me a few different options. But did it really bring this thing down into the weeds? Did it make it an unusable camera? Well, quite the opposite. Now, the Mark III does give us some certain advantages. For instance, the night sky autofocus, which is great if you're doing that sort of astral photography. It's given us the ability to charge the battery in camera, which I think is a really, really good thing to do. But has it given me any more facilities insofar as my normal daily picture taking? And I would probably have to say no on that. The Mark III is still available new, and as far as I know, but it's also very, very easily available on the second-hand and used market. But it's considerably more expensive than this. These are going for about £500 UK for a good quality used camera with a low shutter count. So it really does make good value for money. It is a slightly bigger camera than the Mark 1, and it's certainly got a chunkier grip. So in the hand it's been really good. I found carrying it around, I usually use a wrist strap, as you can see. I found carrying it around not a problem at all. I usually just sort of put it on the wrist strap and almost have it dangling from my fingertips and my thumb on the thumb grip. There's a good little thumb grip on there, which is useful. Now, some of the comments when I was deciding which camera to take said about this, why take a camera which you've rarely used? Because I haven't used this at all very much. It's been sitting there, it's a great bit of kit, but I just haven't used it. I've been doing my videos on the G9, and I've usually been using the Mark 1 for stills or the GX8 for stills. So why take a camera you're not familiar with? Well, one of the advantages of having the E-M1 range is that they've pretty much kept the same format along. And one of the things I do like is the two buttons on the top here, which give me options to do all sorts of things like HDR. It lets me set my metering zones. It lets me do all sorts of bits and pieces very easy on the top. These are the same controls as we have on the Mark 1 in the same place. As I've said in previous videos about the fact that the power switch is on the left hand side, which I don't necessarily like because it's a two-handed operation, and people have said you can allocate it in the menu, which you can, to that switch on the back, but I prefer the fact that that switch gives me multiple options for other switches, and I lose that ability by making it a power switch. So I've kept it pretty much standard on that, but I do reallocate some of the buttons on here. It's been a really useful camera for me to take. I've enjoyed carrying it. And to tell you the truth, it's been one of these cameras which has just been sitting in my hand the whole time, taking really good quality shots. As I say, these aren't photographs that I'm going to be selling professionally. These aren't photographs I'm going to be doing anything special with. These are photographs just to give me holiday memories. But I still want quality. I still want to have a really exciting colour scape on there. I still really wanted to have fantastic detail and great sharpness. Now, I took 4 lenses on holiday with me, if you remember. I took my 14 to 140 Lumix, which we'll come back to that in a moment. I took my 4 to 14 Lumix, the f4 fixed. I also took my 17mm, I love this 17mm, I've told you lots of times, 17mm f1.8 lens. And I also took the Lumix 25mm, the nifty 50 equivalent. I took that, the f1.7 with me. Both this and the 25mm are so light you can just pop them in your pocket, and ideal for low light shots. If you're inside a building or something where you can't use flash, anything like that, then it's great. Now, speaking of flash, I did actually open up and use the little included flash attachment on this. It takes its power from the camera, and to be honest with you, I didn't think it was going to be much good. A couple of people in the hotel said, could you take a photograph of us? And it was night time. I got it out, put it on, and my goodness, what a cracking bit of kit it is. It gives a really useful light. The problem that you have, of course, is that it's not an off-camera flash, so you get a very harsh frontal light. But you can tilt and swivel the head on it, and you can actually get a reasonable bounce flash from it. It's a useful bit of kit, and it's, again, so small, so light, just to keep in your camera bag, but it's not sitting on the camera all the time, taking up space and adding weight when you don't need it. Now, I did have some worries about the lenses I took. I took the 14 to 140, and of course that's given me a 28 to 280 on a full frame equivalent, which is a nice big long lens. It's usable, but of course the in-lens stabilization on that wasn't really going to do me much good mounted on the Olympus. The Olympus didn't recognize it. I couldn't really switch it on, so I was using the in-body stabilization on this, and that did give me some worries, because this gives round about five and a half, maybe 6 stops of stabilization. I can't remember what's in the specs. I told you I'm not going to be doing big specs on this, but it gives a good in-body image stabilization. And I was wondering if it was going to be enough for effectively an almost 300mm equivalent lens, especially on slower shutter speeds. I needn't have worried. It was absolutely fantastic. The IBIS on this is just superb. Also, the focusing speed, whether I was using Lumix lenses or Olympus lenses, was spot on, very, very quick, very, very instant almost on most of these things. And in all sorts of light conditions, it didn't let me down. The one thing that I do miss on this, it doesn't have the little joystick like I have on the G9 or on my old Canons that I got used to. So I'm using the four switch on there to be able to set up my focusing point. But once you get used to it, it's a little bit of muscle memory. Once you get used to using that again rather than a little joystick, it comes back very, very quickly, and it's a usable control on it. The worry I had was using the 14 to 140 when I was going to be using video, because video on this is cropped. And as soon as you start cropping video in, again, it's making a smaller sensor. It's effectively making it a larger jump insofar as zoom. It's making it even more of a long range zoom. And of course on video you've got all sorts of things. Was I going to be getting really shaky videos? And the answer again was no. Everything I was taking handheld, unless I was being stupid with and waving around. When I was trying to concentrate and hold it steady, the camera was rock solid. It was giving me fantastic results on video. Now the camera overall has been great. One of the things that I really did use on this camera was I switched it into 16:9 mode, because I do want to be doing videos, photographs into the videos. And of course, airplane going over. And of course when you're doing videos, they're all 16:9 format, so it was easier to shoot the photographs in that, to know that what I was seeing is going to fit on the frame. Now remember, on a RAW file you do get that extra bit back again. It's on the JPEGs that you get in these. It has twin card slots, and how I have mine configured, the fast card slot is the main one. It is UHS 2, the other one is UHS 1, and what I do is I tend to put my video and a low resolution JPEG on the card 1. On card 2 I put a fine resolution JPEG. So I've got the best of both worlds, as well as the RAW going on to card 1. So I'll have RAW and fine resolution JPEG, and also my video. And on the second card then I have just the JPEG, but it's a fine resolution. I'll rephrase that: the RAW and the normal resolution on the card 1, and the fine resolution on card 2. I found it very, very useful using the normal resolution, because it created smaller files, so to transfer onto the iPad I was doing my editing on was a real bonus for me. It was marvellous except for one thing, and this is something which has happened on my OM1, my E-M1 Mark 1. And it's something I never got to the bottom of, and I was on holiday. I wasn't going to be sitting ploughing through manuals. So the answer to this might be, oh, it's on the manual page X, whatever it is. Why didn't you look on there? Because I was on holiday. I wasn't going to be looking at manuals, particularly if I didn't need to. If I couldn't find it intuitively in the menu at the back, then really it was too complicated for normal everyday use. And I managed to get it into a mode, and I've done this on the Mark 1 as well several times. I got it into a mode where I couldn't do continuous autofocus, and I also couldn't do multiple shutter releases. I was on a single shutter release, and I couldn't do the low or the high speed. They were grayed out on the menu on both of those, and that was a bit of a pain for me. It really caused me some difficulties, because I couldn't find a way to get back into the normal mode. Normally I'll shoot on aperture priority, and that was fine. I must have done something to change it, but I've got no idea what I did to change the modes. And the only way I could get out of it was to do a soft reset on the camera, go into the menu, do a soft reset, not the full reset. But that, of course, got me reset an awful lot of the other things, like the 16:9 photographs that I was doing. So I had to set some of those things back up again. If you know a solution on this, or if you know what's causing that, because it has happened quite often, let me know, please. Let me know, A, how I've put it into that mode, and B, how to get out of it. As I say, I wasn't going to be ploughing through manuals. I had the manual on my iPad, but I had other things to do. Pina coladas being one thing, tequila sunrises being another, and lunch and dinner being another thing. So I had other priorities on my mind other than messing around with cameras. When I took the camera across there, I took a spare battery as well, and I have a USB charger. I took the main charger, but I have a USB charger which charges 2 batteries at once. It was only cost about £7 or £8 from eBay. Absolutely fantastic, worked a treat. Now the big thing with this, on the battery on this, it lasted a long time. It lasted my full day's shoot, and I know for a fact that my Mark 1 version of this, I would have had to change the battery at some point in it. So the newer camera with a better battery really is an improvement. Now if you're enjoying this video, don't forget, give us a thumbs up if you would, if you haven't done it already. It's dead easy, just down. And if you want to subscribe, please do so. It costs you nothing to subscribe. You're not signing up for anything. It just means that it goes on your subscription line, so you'll see videos when I do them. And also, if you do want to support the channel, as usual, there's a little PayPal link. If you want to buy me a coffee, I'd really appreciate it, and thanks to all those who do. So keep watching as well, because I'm going to give you my conclusion as to whether this is a good camera to take, or whether it was just an adequate camera and got me through my holiday or not. The camera itself it's not overly heavy. It's I think lighter than the G9. I haven't put them on the scales, but it feels light, and it certainly feels a little bit more nimble than the G9. When you put the two together though, there's not a great deal of physical difference between them. One thing I didn't like, and you've got to have things that you didn't like, and again, there may be a way around this, but I couldn't find it by looking through the menus. And the menus, by the way, they're horrible. I hate Olympus menus. Hate's a strong word. I dislike them. I don't find them particularly intuitive. They're not particularly attractive to get into and use. They're not particularly color-coded in any way, although there is some color coding on. If you compare these to the Lumix menus leave them for dead. But there is a lot in the menus, and that in itself is something of a problem sometimes because you can't see the wood for the trees. So there may have been a solution on this in the menu, but again, I wasn't going to plough through everything. And that's this. I've been using the Lumix G9 for my video work almost exclusively. And when I want to make a video on that, I just literally press the little red button on the top, go straight into video mode. I usually have it on the eye auto position, and that's great for getting the eyes in focus. But on this one, normally I'll be changing it through to the little video position. You can see it on the top thing there, the video camera, and that's great. Press the button. But if I'm in aperture priority mode on the G9 and I press that red button, it will then start taking a video. Or if I'm in speed priority, it will take a video. On this one, it doesn't. It's not allocated. Doesn't matter what you press, it wasn't going to start taking the video. And I found that a bit of a pain because I was forever having to take it 4 clicks to the aperture. I usually shoot on aperture priority. So you have to take 4 clicks one way to take stills, 4 clicks the other way to take normal video. And if you don't quite get it right, you're suddenly onto art mode or whatever it is. So I found that a bit of a pain on this. I went through the menus. I could allocate the red button off to other things, but in aperture priority mode, I could not find a way to allocate it to starting video. If you know how to do it on the still camera mode, please let me know, because I think it'd be really, really useful. I find it really useful on the G9 if I want to get a shallower back depth of field, that I can force the aperture into a particularly wide open low aperture count and get a nice creamy bokeh, or I can take it into a very wide depth of field very quickly. I was struggling on this one. And again, the problem I've got is when I was shooting photography for a profession, I didn't do videos. Video to me is very new. It's only came in since I started making YouTube videos. So for me, it's not something I've ploughed into to try and get the best out of. I'm literally using it as a tool. And using it as a tool wasn't intuitive. However, the camera overall, the viewfinder is great. I found it large enough and clear enough and bright enough. The layout of the information in both the viewfinder and the rear panel, the 3-inch rear panel, I find to be absolutely superb. I find it easy to put into Wi-Fi mode to transfer photographs over onto my iPad, although it does struggle on videos. If you're trying to transfer videos over, it's a pain in the proverbial, because it just takes forever to do, and it's quite often it'll just time out on itself. The other thing I'm not so keen on is that the videos are in .mov format, and if you watch some of my earlier videos while I was away on holiday, you find that caused me a little bit of problem. I had to find workarounds for that. The only MP4 resolution I could find was on 720p. Now I'm asking a great deal from videos. All the videos I'm shooting are on 25 frame high res, which is the 1080p. So I'm not really pushing it at all on that. They're not super high things. I don't shoot in 4K, anything silly like that. But I still found a few issues on there to transfer them over onto my iPad device when I was away. Overall though, the camera was great, easy in the hand, easy to use. The battery life was superb. The autofocus, let's talk about the autofocus. I mentioned before about the stability, but the autofocus on this, whether I'm using the Lumix lenses or the Olympus lenses, was 99.999% of the time spot on. I didn't really do anything with fast-moving objects coming towards me, but when I was trying to get something into the frame and trying to get it autofocused, I found that I could set the focusing point up very quickly, and the whole thing just came in, snapped into focus instantly on almost every lens, and it was an absolute joy, even in fairly low light conditions. So, what do I think of the E-M1 Mark II now? Well, it is a 6-year-old camera, but as I said in another video, the newer cameras I'm not using the facilities of. So do I want to change it for them? Not really. If I was going to do something, I'd probably maybe skip the Mark III and find an OM1, but I think that's going to be a couple of years down the line. This camera's got a lot of life left in it yet. And to be honest, if I was needing to replace it, I'd probably replace it with another Mark II, because they are such good value for money and such good workhorse cameras. This thing's hardly been touched though. Is it a good camera for taking on holiday? It's a superb camera for taking on holiday. If you have one, don't worry about it. You're going to thoroughly enjoy using it. It's going to be a joy in the hand to use. It's going to be a joy when you see it in the eye. And the good thing with Olympus, I love the colour profiles that Olympus have. I really do like what they do, the colour technology. I like the format, I like the layout of the cameras. They really are very, very good. Other thing I would say though, it's got some really good things. The bracketing, you've got various bracketing modes. Now if you're going to be doing focus bracketing, you need certain lenses. But one thing I really liked was the art bracketing. Instead of going through all the art modes, you can take one photograph, and if you've got art bracketing on, it'll apply all those art modes to the photograph that you take. Very, very simple, very, very easy. So in conclusion, the E-M1 Mark II, is it worth buying used? Absolutely worth buying used. Have I enjoyed using it? I've loved using it, and even more, this is probably going to be my standard default camera for using for stills from now on. It has knocked the Mark I off the perch, but also I found the video so easy to use. It's probably going to be used an awful lot of the time when I wasn't using the G9. So if you've enjoyed this video, as I say, don't forget to give a subscription, give me a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. And until the next time, this is Brian James at Micro Four Thirds guy saying thanks very much. Take your camera out with you, do your photography, and keep on having fun doing so. See you next time. Bye bye.